Your inspection period starts the moment that you have a fully executed contract, which means that all parties have signed your offer.
Yep. So it's go time at that point. You're checking out the Investor Shed podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. They're on the path to financial freedom, and they're taking their community with them. Stay tuned for the best free real estate investing advice on the internet. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Investor Shed podcast. My name is Jeremy Kitchen, here as always with the beautiful, magnificent Nicholas Beveridge.
Wow, you're so nice to me.
I learned a lot from, podcast intros. Nick's got to go buy an RV today, so we're going to get down to the brass taxes. And speaking of brass taxes, we are going to be talking about the home buying process, the brass taxes of the home buying process.
Brass monkeys.
Brass monkey taxes. We're going to be talking about, what steps to anticipate, what to look out for, who you should be working with, and, breaking down the entire home buying purchase cycle. So if you've never bought in a house or you've only bought one or two, this episode is going to be extremely helpful for you.
I hope so. We hope you learned something today.
Yeah. Speaking of learning something, I want to learn what food you should be having on this episode.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to say strawberry milk.
Strawberry milk?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of strawberry milk? Are we talking 2% here? Are we talking almond milk? Like
Nestle's?
Great.
I don't know what they...
So
what
the Nestle
are they?
powder?
Oh, no. I mean, you can get them at the groceries, the gas stations.
Okay.
The one with the bunny on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to your local gas station, pick up some strawberry milk, put it in the microwave, and enjoy this episode.
That's what Mitch would do. Well, good morning, everybody. Hey, I'm Nick Beveridge, the host, with not the most. The most is right here, Jeremy Kitchen.
You are too kind. I think you're the host with the mostest today. We got a really cool episode today, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about the home buying process.
Yeah, little entry level here. So if you haven't yet been investing in real estate, you want to, or you haven't even purchased a home, this is going to be an episode that I think you're going to pay attention to, because we're just going to break it down real simply. We're going to try not to go above and beyond and confuse anybody here.
Right.
We're going to try to break down what the process is like, just to give you a little bit extra confidence boost to go ahead and move forward to the next action step.
And I think this is going to be a really important episode for a lot of people, specifically starting out, of course. It can feel daunting when you're buying a home, not knowing what the next step is, especially if you don't have the right pieces in place. Like, there's a lot of moving pieces, and we're hopefully going to be providing some clarity for you today.
So broad overview of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about starting from square one, just looking at property on the internet, which is where almost everybody starts out.
Yep.
And then calling an agent or calling somebody else to help you out, go checking out a property, what it's like to make an offer, what financing options you have, what an offer looks like, everything that an offer should have in it to be a valid contract, and then what happens after you have an acceptance, meaning the other seller or the seller accepts your offer. What then? What does that process look like? That, is it a 10-day process? Is it a 30-day process, 45? Why is it 45? We'll break that down too. Yeah. Why sometimes it can take this long. And then closing.
Yeah. And we're going to actually hit this from two different sides. So we're going to hit it from, your normal conventional, just buying an off-market property and like on the market, to buying a wholesale property, to what you should be expecting on both sides. So.
Yeah. And technically, this could be three ways too.
Yeah.
You could be buying a property off market. We'll walk you through that. It's not much different.
We love three ways.
Yeah. How'd you know?
We just love those around here.
Yep. And then, what it's like buying a wholesale property from a wholesaler. And then what it's like to just, conventionally just buy something on the internet.
Yeah.
And what that process looks like. Honestly, they're all almost the same.
They are, yeah.
So we're going to try not to complicate this and really break it down to just give people confidence to just take the next action.
Yeah.
So
the main difference on them, and we'll get into it, is mostly just funding options for buying from a wholesaler and buying conventionally.
Yeah. But, the process is slightly tweaked.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get into that.
Of course.
Let's start off with the basics. Like where if you want to buy a house or if you want to invest, like where do most people start?
Right.
The easy answer is just the internet. Like you can go to realtor.com or Zillow, or you can call a real estate agent and ask to be set up on a portal.
Yep.
Now, this will be a little bit more of an accurate idea of what's actually available on the MLS. The MLS is the multiple listing service, and it is the ultimate platform that licensed real estate agents that are members of the National Association of Realtors get to use to put properties on the market for anyone to, not just anyone to buy, but anybody also to represent you. And that's the whole purpose of the multiple listing service. It's so that you can get a hold of any licensed agent to show you anything that's on the MLS, which would be properties that are on like realtor.com. Not necessarily everything that's on Zillow is on the MLS. So we'll break down the differences a little bit later.
Yeah, and you'll find, your for sale by owners and everything there as well.
Sometimes,
Sometimes, yeah. But, first step, like you said, you just got to kind of identify the property or figure out a way to identify which property you're going to look. And this is going to obviously depend on your criteria of what you're looking for. And the more clear I believe you are, the clearer it will be going forward. Because if you're just like, I want to buy a house, well, in Cooney County, how many houses are there listed?
Not many.
Not many. Not many right now.
I mean, a couple hundred.
Yeah, well, a couple hundred. But I mean,
it's gone up a little bit. I mean, it'll look like it's more, but it's in reality with what's under contract,
right,
and what's really not available yet. That's like a to be built. It's really it's not a whole lot, but that will change. I mean, it's springtime. We're getting into the summer, and we're seeing a lot of listings starting to go active.
I think honestly, the first step would obviously just be getting pre-approved through a lender.
Yeah. That's a great first start.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, rather than going to look and seeing what's available, I would find out what you are approved for. And the best way to do that, of course, is just go talk to your favorite lender in the area. We've got a few we could recommend in here in the Cooney County area. But find out what your buying power is. That way you can kind of narrow down what exactly you should be looking for and what's in your price point.
It is such an important first step. Before you ever go look at properties, see what you can buy.
Yeah.
If you're getting a loan.
Yeah.
If you're using cash, not as important. Right. You know that. But if you are getting a loan and you haven't yet talked to a lender, you got to talk to one. Right. You got to talk to one. That way the lender can give you a reality check on what you can and can't do and what you what you can expect, how much cash you need to bring to the table to make something work.
Right.
And sometimes you'd be surprised how little cash you might need to bring to the table, depending on the loan that you're going after. There's all kinds of different loans out there. Some where you can get into a property less than you can a rental sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not that hard, depending on the loan program that you're going after and what you're comfortable making a payment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so important to do that because obviously the next step in this equation would be, finding representation or finding the property. A realtor is going to want you to be pre-approved, so you're not wasting their time at the same time, right?
Yeah. Well, they want you to be pre-approved because it's important.
It is.
It's not just you'd be wasting their time, you'd be wasting your own time. So nobody wants that. If you're out with a realtor and you haven't been approved and you've been out like looking at multiple properties and they've still never asked you, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
That means that agent probably hasn't been doing it very long, or they're a little bit lazy and they forgot a fundamental step to see, do you even qualify for a home?
Can we get you this?
Because you're not just wasting their time, you're wasting your own time, and you're wasting the seller's time too, getting a house ready for you.
Yeah.
Most sellers, if they have a showing scheduled, they're going to spend a couple hours.
Yeah.
A couple hours getting that house ready and pristine, show ready. Not everybody. Some people are slobs, but most people that take the step to put their home on the market, they take a lot of preparation, so you got to respect that.
Yeah, of course. And respect everybody's time because that comes around back on you at the same time, right? If you're going to respect your lenders and your realtor's time, they're going to respect your time as well, and you're just going to make a really symbiotic business relationship that way.
True that. Yeah. So, that was a good first step. Get pre-approved, see what you can qualify for. Then you've got three options. Three options when it comes to going to look at a property. If you go to a website like Zillow and you look at a house and you're like, man, I'd like to see that, and you click on like your request to be contacted, Zillow, then they sell your information to 3 different agents.
Yep.
And your phone will be ringing off the hook. 3 people trying to help you at the same time and competing.
Is that how it works? They sell it to 3 people? That's it?
Yeah.
No more, no less?
Yeah, but sometimes those numbers could be given away, to other multiple people to follow up with you.
Gotcha.
So that's just agents too. There's also lenders that might get a hold of you too.
Yeah.
So just be aware when you fill out forms on the internet and you're just saying, hey, this platform contact me. That platform just made some money because they're selling your data,
right?
Which isn't always a bad thing.
No, it's not.
I mean, you're dealing with agents that have put up money to try to work with people, so that's not the worst thing either.
Right.
So
typically
that's
they're a little bit more serious, right?
Yeah. So not totally a bad thing, but if you're the type of person that doesn't want a bunch of people calling you, do not put your number in Zillow. Do not put your number in Realtor.com. Do not put your number on the internet for somebody to contact you.
Also, don't put your number in when you're shopping insurance rates online. By the way, if you want your phone if you want your phone to ring more than 3 times, put an insurance quote online and put your phone number on. You'll see what happens.
Oh man. Yeah, a few months ago, I was shopping my health insurance rates, and I thought I was going to a website where it was just one company that was going to give me a quote, and I screwed up. And as soon as I hit submit and went to the next page, it's like, well, thanks a lot. We're going to have a shit ton of people try to get a hold of you for the next month.
Yeah,
not just one, not two, but we've sold your information to like 20 different companies.
Yeah,
and they're all calling you right now.
Right. But of course, if you're buying a home, like, you want these agents to kind of contact you, because if you're buying a home, like, that's the next step to have representation. Does your team, do they buy leads off Zillow?
We don't.
No. Okay.
Yeah. But that's just a choice we made. I used to buy leads off Zillow. It just wasn't we didn't get the return that made sense for us. And we also don't like dealing with cold people that we, well, I mean, I guess it's just a preference.
Sure. And you guys have your networks and your systems built up. I was just curious how it works on your guys' end, because a lot of different teams like function in a lot of different ways, basically.
Oh, yeah. Our way of getting leads is we put on monthly networking events for real estate investors, and we're able to meet face to face with 50 people a month.
Yep.
And we tend to focus to put our time there instead of trying to constantly look under new rocks and stuff. Zillow is a great platform for people that just don't do that kind of thing, and they're sitting in an office and they need the phone to ring.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's option 1. Option 2 is you can look at that listing and you can see who the listing agent, because eventually on almost every website, it has to tell you who is the actual listing brokerage and the listing agent that is supplying that listing. Kind of like in the Associated Press, whenever you're reading an article that's been duplicated 100 times around the U.S., usually they give credit to who actually wrote that piece. It's the same thing with the MLS. Eventually they have to give credit somewhere in that listing to who is actually the listing agent.
Right.
Now you can get their contact info just by searching their name in another, on Google, and then you can contact them directly.
Yeah.
Or most websites, they'll put their number in there too.
Sure. And I would advise, honestly, against that method.
Okay, why?
The reason is because if you're going to be going after the listing agent for the specific listing of that property, they're going to be dual representing the buyer and the seller at that point. And if that happens, I mean, it happens all the time, but realistically what happens is, do they have your best interest in mind when they're also representing the seller of the property?
Yeah. So I got to correct you there.
Okay, please.
You were almost right. You're right about the concept, but they are not representing you at all. When you call the listing broker, they are representing their seller. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their seller.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which means they have to, money-wise, they have to be on the side of the seller when it comes to negotiation, hints, all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
They've got to financially, legally, they owe all
operate in their seller's best interest, right?
They have to operate in their seller's best interest.
Right.
So that means they will give you information. You may it is a shortcut.
Right.
You can bypass another agent by just going direct. Sometimes it's a great strategy.
Sure.
Sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
It's just something to be aware of, that just know when you're calling the listing agent, they have a financial arrangement with the seller, and they are a fiduciary with that seller.
Yeah.
Unless it's a flat fee listing service.
Sure.
Then they work as, like in Idaho, more as just a customer.
Sure.
So
okay.
they're a customer of the brokerage.
Okay. Well, I guess the point I was trying to get at with that, like, yes, you can do that, and yes, you can go to the listing agent, but you are absolutely correct. I'm sorry I misspoke on that. But what I would recommend is I would try to interview, 3 to 4 agents and find one you actually like. And just build up that business relationship, of course, because if you're going to be buying these houses and, obviously if you're investing, you're going to try to be buying more than one, probably a year. And just build up a really cool relationship with somebody you know, like, and trust.
Yeah. Because the reason is when you work with one agent, and at least this is the way it works for now, we're in early 2024. Something interesting happened where in the latter year of 2024, things may switch when it comes to buyer's agents. But for now, this is how it works. If you're seeing properties on the MLS, you only have to work with one agent.
Yeah.
And you don't have to pay that agent yet.
Yeah.
The seller of whoever the seller's always paying the commissions.
Right.
And that's why it's on the MLS, because they're putting a bounty out there saying, here you go, we're hiring 2,000 salespeople. We do have one person that's financially, we have one person that's a fiduciary to us, and that's the listing agent.
Hey, Coeur d'Alene, are you ready to take your real estate game to the next level?
Join us for an exclusive 2-day real estate investing seminar right here in Coeur d'Alene, September 21st and 22nd.
We have an amazing lineup of guest speakers that are traveling out here to teach you everything you need to know to succeed in real estate investing.
That's right. How to find a deal. What is a good deal? How to form an LLC. What tax strategies do I use?
We'll dive in on how to wholesale real estate, how to do fix and flips, and how to purchase long-term rentals.
And that's just the beginning. We're also going to dive into self-storage units, property management, and how to invest out of state. Hey, Nick, what's the market going to do in 2025?
I don't know, but we got Kathy Fecky from Bigger Pockets coming to forecast the 2025 real estate market, and we're going to talk about how to create those business leverage systems.
Plus, we're going to learn how to get your mindset right. What's a short-term rental versus a mid-term rental? How do I build passive income, or should I be building massive income?
What to do? what do we do?
I don't even know what to do with my hands.
I don't even know what to do. We're going to learn. I'm telling you, this is an opportunity you do not want to miss.
Tickets are limited, very affordable, and you do not want to miss networking with these amazing people who are going to be at this event.
Yes, so hurry. Hurry.
Run.
Click on the link.
Go to northidahorei.com and click on the 2024 Fall Conference tab. Get you signed up.
They're going to sell out, I promise you.
It's gone. It's going to be gone.
Bye-bye.
But we're technically hiring 2,000 people here, and this is the amount that we're paying. So anybody can come show this property.
Yeah. Bring your buyers, we'll pay you part of the bounty.
Yeah. So that's why it's a huge benefit to just work with one agent, because the likelihood that you're going to buy the first house that you call on is very, very low. So do you want to call 20 to 30 different agents and talk to 20 to 30 different agents, if you can get them on the phone,
Right.
about properties as you're doing your due diligence, or would you rather just talk to one?
Right. And I agree with you there. One question on this kind of a little bit. So you said people don't typically buy the first home they look at. Is there any stats that say like what percentage or what home they end up buying after showing?
Yeah, there are stats. They're manipulated. That they change. Sure. I can tell you based off my experience that that you got like a 5% chance.
Sure.
Of, like when somebody's calling on a property and inquiring about it, that there's like around a 5% chance that they're actually going to go through with purchasing the house that they're calling on.
Gotcha. I was going to say, from your experience, like how many houses have you shown on a rough estimate before people make a purchase on what they want?
Usually 2 to 5 homes.
Cool. So you just start narrowing it down, right? And you're like, this house doesn't work. And
which may sound low. Sure. But we're in a day and age where a lot of people can see a lot online, and we can filter quite a bit. And then the way I work is I usually, when I meet with somebody and we put together their wants and needs, and we can see everything that's on the internet, we can get a list of like, 10 or 20 different properties that may fit their criteria. And then we kind of go through them a little bit more and kind of narrow that down to 10.
Sure.
And then I'll say, okay, we've looked at all, these are all a good option. I can start scheduling showings for later in the week. But what I want you to do, buyer, go drive by all of them, please.
Yeah.
Drive by them. Let me know if there's any that we can discard, that we don't need to set up a showing for.
Right.
And almost always that list gets cut in half.
Right.
Or they narrow it down to like 2 or 3 that they really actually want to see. So it's all about filtering. And these days, just, with technology, with photos, with videos online, with being able to drive by neighborhoods and stuff, you just don't need to walk through as many homes as you used to, needed to in the past to kind of get a good idea what you're looking for.
Sure. And I know you brought up this on actually one of the videos you did. This is more for an agent side, but, typically you said, okay, you got house A and house B. You want to try to filter your buyer into one or the other, right? So after you look at house B, you're like, which one did you like better? And then you rip up the listing paperwork of the one they didn't like. And you just start filtering down that line, right? And a
buyer can do this too.
Yeah, and a buyer can absolutely do that.
Yeah, it's just a great way because you're going to get overwhelmed sometimes, depending on your personality type. But a lot of people, when they're walking through homes, it's a big decision. And if they see 2 homes that they actually really like that day, you just ask yourself a simple question. If you had to make a decision today and you had to buy one or the other, which one would you buy? And if you're like, almost always like this one or the one we just looked at, like you kind of know right away what, if you had to make a decision today, which one would it be? Yeah. So what you do with that information is you try to discard in your mind the other property, even though you liked it. And that's a way I felt has been a good way to help people get through that mental decision breaking barrier.
Right. It helps them make like a choice that they really want to make but have a hard time articulating it.
Yeah. Just say, what do you want to do? This one or that one? If you had to make a decision today, which one would it be? Okay, this is the one. And my gut tells me this because my gut's almost always right.
There you go.
So that's a good way to just narrow it down. Yeah. Otherwise, and I made them, when I was a brand new agent, I would show people 100 homes sometimes. There was a lot more inventory back then.
So much analysis by paralysis.
But yeah, I would just confuse people because I didn't know how to help them make decisions. I would just like, okay, you want to see these? You want to see these 20 properties this week? All right, we'll get it going. We'll do this one this day, these 4 that day. Yeah, and then send me a new list next week, and we'll just keep doing this because.
This is what I thought the job was.
yeah, because I just didn't have enough skill to learn over time. Right. Or I eventually learned over time, oh yeah, as an agent, you got to try to help people make a decision because decisions are tough for a lot of people.
They are. And this is a big financial decision for a lot of people. So you can see why there's a lot of uncertainty and unclarity because people don't know. And if you can just kind of give them a little bit of guidance, I think that really helps move the process along. So obviously step 1, get pre-approved. Step 2, find a badass agent to work with.
Yep. And try to respect their time.
And try to respect their time. And they'll respect your time too, right? So
because you're in a weird situation where almost everybody, if you haven't done this before, almost everybody that is working on the clock that you've ever met, they're getting paid no matter what. When you go to a restaurant and you order something, that waiter, the cook, the manager, everybody's getting paid. When you work with a real estate agent, they only get paid if you buy the property.
If you do business
with them. But there are many times where you can work with an agent for months, and you can spend 100 hours of their time, and then one day you decide, oh, they didn't answer their phone today. I'm just going to call the list agent. And the list agent answers, yeah, come check this out. It's perfect. Okay. And then you make the offer, and you accidentally kind of cut out the agent that was just working 100 hours for you.
Yeah.
But, people see agents differently. They think, some people think that they just get paid by their brokerage. Some people don't understand how it works.
Sure.
So this is part of this podcast. I'm just, if you don't know already, just know that these are independent businesses. Even though they're just people, they're all independent business owners, and they only get paid if they close a transaction. Their brokerage, they just hang their license with the brokerage. The brokerage doesn't pay them a salary.
Right.
The brokerage doesn't pay them for going to show properties. The brokerage doesn't pay them to list properties. The brokerage doesn't necessarily pay them. The brokerage does handle the money once it comes in and pays the agents what they are supposed to get. But it's a weird industry where it's one of the only times in history you're going to deal with somebody that isn't going to get paid unless you actually go through the whole transaction with them.
Yeah.
So even if you're dealing with a car salesman, they're typically getting paid a minimum.
Yeah, they typically get a minimal salary.
A minimum salary per month, even if they're not selling any cars.
Yeah.
They might get fired.
You're not going to be working there very long.
But there aren't many professions at all where you can spend a bunch of time with somebody, a professional, and not pay them a dime.
Yeah. And what you said about, accidentally cutting out the middleman is very important there because, I think it's happened to a lot of people. My parents have done it. They just don't know, they don't know the process on what it actually means to be represented or what it actually means to be working with these people. If you start cutting that person out, that's a bad business relationship. It's hard at that point.
Yeah. It's a great way to make enemies.
Yeah, great way. Well, I'm not answering my phone call from you anymore.
Yeah, because if a professional that's running their own business needs to make at least $75 an hour or something like that, and you spent, you looked at a bunch of homes with them, you spent 50 hours or so, you spent almost $4,000 of their time.
Yep.
And then to cut them out, how would you like somebody to come and just take $4,000 away from your paycheck? And
I'd be super angry.
A lot of people would be angry.
Yeah.
So you got to understand why they'd be angry because they don't get paid.
Right.
And if you use their time, just use it wisely and make sure that they eventually get compensated.
Right.
Or if you end up not buying a house, make sure you use them when you do. Sure. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Just try to be respectful of people's time. Now, of course, if they are just not getting back to you, if they're just a shitty agent, and if you could just tell, if you just get the heebie-jeebies from them, that's a different story.
Yeah, you're not required to work with these people.
Unless you're under an agreement with them.
You are under an agreement, correct.
Because some agents will ask you, which will become more common. If you want to work with me, come meet me in the office and let's sign a buyer's representation agreement is what it's called. And that's where you're obligated to work with them and they are obligated to work with you.
Yep. It's a business agreement, basically.
And and if you sign one of those with a real estate agent, don't just think of the cons that you're stuck with somebody. Also know that they're kind of stuck with you too.
Yeah. And
they all of a sudden, once you sign one of those, they owe you fiduciary responsibilities by law.
Yep. So yeah, no, I think it's a good thing to have those. Just understand that, you just don't waste their time. They won't waste yours. And going forward, with the whole buyer's agents not getting paid anymore thing, more people are going to be wanting that contract in place before they kind of start working with you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So going forward, obviously, get pre-approved, get a realtor. What's the next step from there? Because we're barely touching the iceberg. So
I know. Sorry. This happens with these podcasts.
It does. Yeah.
Okay. So the next step, obviously, you've established that you're pre-approved, and now you've got an agent in one of three ways. You've clicked a button and you have a bunch of people calling you and you pick one, or you call the listing agent, or you just find an agent by other means, somebody that you want to work with exclusively. Next is that you ask them to send you properties, and you also look at properties on the internet. One of the if you're not getting direct feeds from the MLS, from that agent, which I would recommend if you ask them, just say, if you're looking for an investment property, say, hey, can you send me automatically anything that comes up in this area that the price per square foot is under $150 or something like that, or anything that's a bank-owned property, immediately sell it to me, not sell it to me, immediately send it to me.
Right.
If it's a short sell, immediately send it to me. If it says TLC in the public descriptions, TLC needs work, handyman special, investor special, if it has any of these keywords, could you set up custom searches where the MLS automatically sends me one of those listings?
Yeah.
Regardless of the price per square foot.
Right.
If anything like that pops up, could you just automatically send it to me? That way. And the agent can do this. It doesn't take them a whole lot of time. It might take them, if they've been doing it for a while, it might take them 3 minutes to set up. And if they're kind of newer, that's okay. It might take them an hour to set up, but this is their job.
Yep.
This is part of their job. Definitely ask for it.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
I love that. The one thing I will say, obviously, at least in this market, you look on the MLS and you see things that say investor special. None of them are.
Yeah. They're advertised, but
they're advertised, but you can still search for those keywords, and you can still, like Nick said, search for, a price per square foot. You can find things that need rehab, because typically those properties are going to be the ones that people can really fudge a little bit on the numbers, and
Yeah.
maybe there's a little bit of wiggle room, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you may be looking online, you're like, everything's overpriced. It is, because that's just what they're showing you as, like, this is how much we would like to get.
Yeah.
But in reality, with a lot of these fixer-uppers, they sell for less. So don't be afraid to make offers. It's not rocket science. And I feel like we live in an age where people are afraid to make offers.
Yeah.
These days. So don't be one of those people. Run the numbers. If it makes sense at a certain number, and if it looks like a property that they're gonna have to sell, be that squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
You know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're an agent. I just want to kind of pick your brain real quick while we're here. When somebody, obviously you're representing your seller. So if you get a offer that comes in that's low,
Yes.
are you offended?
Am I offended personally? No.
Yeah. No. Good. You shouldn't be.
No.
Good.
No. I'm appreciative. I'm like, oh, cool. Somebody sent me something. It gives me a great excuse to call my seller, because the struggle that a lot of listing agents have with their sellers is that they sometimes they let communication slide, and they let too many days or too many weeks go by where they haven't had a conversation with their seller.
Yeah.
And if they get an offer, it's a great excuse to call their seller and be like, hey, good and bad news. Good news, we got an offer. Bad news, it sucks. But how's everything going? Here's what the offer is. Because by law, we are required any offers that are sent to us as agents, we have to present them to the seller, no matter what, even if it's $1. We can't just trash it. It's illegal. We are required by law, and every agent knows it. If they get an offer, they have to present it to their seller.
I've lowballed a couple times on the MLS, and I've had the agent come back to Sam and I and be like, this is a disappointing offer. I'm like, well,
cool.
That's what I can pay for it.
Yeah.
Do you want it or not? Like,
Is that what the seller said, or just you?
That was coming from the agent, and it's
I
like,
know.
It's funny because I'm like, I've ran the numbers, and here's what it would take to fix this house, and here's what I can pay. Obviously based off the 70% rule. Like, I'm not afraid to make those offers.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit if they think I'm lowballing. I don't care. Like, I'm not gonna go purposely lowball offers. I'm gonna be intentional about this is realistically what I can pay and what it's worth. Here you go.
Yeah, and don't be afraid of rejection. I mean, it's a great it's practice. You've got to find an agent who's willing to play game with you. Obviously. Don't tell an agent, hey, I would like to make 40 offers on all these different properties at, with seller financing, 0 down. Can you make all these offers for me? That's a great way to have an agent never want to call you again.
Right. But you can even simplify this a little bit more.
But because I've had that happen to me.
Yeah.
And I said yes in advance, and then he sent me his offers that he wanted to shotgun out there. And I remember spending from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. at night at the office just writing up all these bullshit offers. But here's the crazy thing. It was 40 or so different offers, and they were all 100% financing, seller financing at 20% off list price.
Sure.
One of them countered us.
Wow.
And we went under contract. It was still priced too high. He eventually backed out anyway, but it's a numbers game.
Yeah.
Eventually you'll find that seller that just needs to sell the property so bad that they're willing to look at anything.
Yeah. And that's specifically what I was going to kind of lead into next with this. So in order to save a little bit of time too, you can ask your agent who's representing you to, get in touch with the other agent and see if they're even entertaining any other offers, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I'd like this property. It's a little overpriced. Do you think you could call them and see what their interest level is in negotiating?
Yeah.
Before we even start.
Because it shaves so much time off the process. For a real estate agent to draft up an offer these days, especially in Idaho, for an investor to go make an offer, it takes them a half hour to an hour to get everything proper to send off to you for you to sign with your email.
There's a lot of buttons to push.
It takes 30 seconds to call a listing agent and just kind of get an idea what their activity's like, what's their seller motivation like, would they entertain anything less than list price? You don't have to get into specifics, but you can at least get a good feel is this going to be worth sending an offer? Because you can spend an hour creating an offer, and then sending it off, and then you get a response back like, haha, well, we're already under contract anyways.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's proper preparation prevents piss poor performance.
6 P's, everybody. You heard it here first, but we've heard it here way earlier than you did. So going on that, of course, like I said, like just talk to your list or talk to your agent and see if there's any wiggle room. And you don't need to make it offensive. You can just ask the question. Hey, are they willing to negotiate? And things to look for. And your agent would be looking for this as well, like days on market.
Yep.
If it needs that TLC. And again, like you just have that conversation with the list agent and you start to find out how desperate the seller really is.
Yeah. So let's back up real quick. What should be in an offer, since this is like a, entry level one, the home buying process. This is what needs to be in an offer. Who's the buyer? Who's the seller? So right there, are you buying it in your personal name or an LLC or your trust?
Yep.
Are you and your wife or your wife and your husband? Who's going to be making the offer? Who's going to end up on title? And then, of course, is this going to be assignable? Are you going to potentially wholesale it? If so, you need to have and or assigns, or you need to check a box that says that you may assign it.
Right.
Now, that's going to get interesting too, but that's another topic. But I just heard in South Carolina, they just banned wholesaling.
Yep. Pace Morgan's been talking
state.
about it for a long time too, saying that wholesaling will become illegal in the next 5 years.
I hope so.
And so what that means, obviously, as an investor and somebody who's like in one of his programs, like the opportunity to do double closings is going to be more high than if I can provide funds for a double closing.
Yeah.
That's going to put me in a major position of power.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just going to have to adjust how we do this.
Right.
But, dude, the wholesalers that I've been dealing with lately, not so much local.
Right.
The local wholesalers around here, like the Easy Home Buyer and stuff, they've all actually been really great to work with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But like some of these wholesale companies that are coming from out of state making offers, and they're just predators, man.
Yeah.
They're sharks, and they're we won't have to go into it on this one.
Yeah, I was like, that seems like a different episode.
Yeah. I would actually like to see some huge restrictions on wholesaling. I think it would clean up the business a lot.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah, there's sharks in any business you go in, of course. There's going to be lender sharks. There's going to be realtor sharks. Just look at people's character before you do business with them and really analyze who that person is and why they should be representing you.
Yeah. So we're over a half hour in, and we're just getting to writing an offer now. So sorry. What else needs to be in that contract? Okay, so you need to have the buyer, the seller, the property address, and the legal description. You also need to have an earnest money amount. Yep. So not just the purchase price. Let's say I'm buying a house for $250,000. Now, also, in the state of Idaho, you need to have some sort of a legal tender consideration in the form of dollars typically, or it could be a cow. It could be whatever.
That's your earnest money then, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Your earnest money is what binds the contract. So earnest money is like a deposit in some sense, but we call it earnest money because it's different from a deposit.
Yeah.
But it's like a deposit.
And that money, just to kind of clarify, like that money is money that you are putting in a escrow company.
Yes.
And that
or with a brokerage.
Or with a brokerage, correct. And that comes off of your purchase price.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So it's basically a deposit, like Nick said. And
it's typically refundable if you back out during any of your contingencies periods, which we'll get into.
Yep.
So let's say on a $250,000 house, what's appropriate is typically around 1%. So like a $2,500 earnest money is appropriate.
Yep.
Or you can call that like conventional, like it's customary. But it really could be whatever you and the seller agree on. It could be $1.
Yeah.
It could be $50,000 if you want to, come on real strong.
Be real serious about the offer. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just money that you're putting up at risk that you're saying, okay, this will bind the contract. I'm putting this up if it gets accepted. That doesn't mean that you're sending it with the offer.
Right.
Here's my $500 or here's my $2,500 with the offer. With me investing, I almost always just make a $500 earnest money just by, I don't know why. I just found that to be an easy thing that sellers never balk at.
Right.
They never say it's too little or too much.
Yeah.
But for investment properties, for me, $500 has always been my earnest money go-to.
Sure.
So anyway, that's earnest money. And then your purchase price. And then you're going to have a due diligence period. In the state of Idaho, your inspection period is also called your due diligence period. What's customary when you're buying a house, single-family residence, is typically about 1 week, 5 business days. Sometimes real estate agents will push this out and say, because what's on the default, if you don't put anything in our contracts, is 5 business days.
Right.
A lot of people put 10. We want an extra couple of weeks. That's if you're in a busier market and maybe you can't get an inspection done that quickly.
Yeah.
Something to consider. Just find out, like, hey, how long does it take to get a home inspector? Does it take a day or two, or could it take a week? If it could take a week, you need a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So find out what's appropriate with your agent as far as your due diligence period. But you're not also just inspecting the home. You're inspecting the neighborhood, the HOA, the CC&Rs, taxes. That's your time to do any kind of research you want and back out for whatever reason you want.
How do people get that info? About HOAs, neighborhoods?
They typically ask their agent to help dig that stuff up, or the title company, or it's provided with the listing.
Right.
There are multiple different sources to get that.
Cool.
But a lot of this stuff is public record.
Sure.
Yeah. A home inspection will cost you money, but we're still talking about the offer.
Right.
So what else needs to be in the offer? Hey, quick commercial break here. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really do appreciate it. If you want to give back, let me help you buy a house, or I can help you sell a house. It's the only way I make money when I'm not investing in real estate. I don't make money on this podcast or the events I do, but I do make money only when I help people buy and sell houses. So if you're looking for your next investment and you're here in North Idaho, I want to help you personally. If you are not in North Idaho, I can still help you out. I have a vast network of referral partners all across the country in Keller Williams Realty, and I can find the right real estate investor savvy agent for you so you don't have to. It doesn't cost you a thing. Thank you for your support. Back to the show. Who you're going to close with, what title company or escrow company. And they're two different things. So like in North Idaho, we like using Title I. They're easy to deal with. Tammy Culp over there is awesome. But there's going to be 2 different sections for, like, who are we using for title insurance? And typically the seller pays for that, but it could be the buyer if you choose.
Yeah, typically, right?
Yep. So you're going to want to find out, is it going to be the seller or the buyer, or are you going to split it? It's typically the seller in Idaho. I know in Florida, when I worked there, it was typically the buyer would pay for title insurance.
Yep.
Yeah. So an escrow fee is going to be something that's separate, like who's doing escrow. And escrow is who's doing all the numbers calculating a third party, and that will, like, have people come into an office and sign everything and make things official and record the deed and do the official transferring of title. That's called escrow. And typically the buyer and the seller will split whatever that cost is equally.
Gotcha.
Typically it's about $1,000, so expect a few $100 per party.
Can the seller pay for it out of their closing costs?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So it's not like an upfront cost to the seller.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost nothing's really upfront costs except for, like, a home inspection.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or an appraisal. Yeah. So also, what should be in the contract, if you're getting a loan on the property, you should make it contingent upon getting a loan and putting the terms in there.
Yep. As a buyer, you want to give yourself as much protection as you can. And obviously, you don't want to, like, dick around and waste people's time. You still want to be intentional while buying the product, but, like, give yourself, like Nick said, like, okay, contingent upon financing, contingent upon inspection, contingent, obviously, upon appraisal if you are getting financing.
Yeah.
Just make sure you put those in the boxes, and your agent's more than likely going to be able to help you with that, just to give you the maximum amount of protection. Yeah.
Now, what's also should be in your contract, too, is, like, if you're buying a vacant house, have the utilities on during inspection. That should be in your contract. Who's going to turn on utilities if they're not on already?
Yep.
Usually it's the seller. But if you're, like, buying a bank-owned property, it's typically the buyer that pays for all that.
Yeah, bank's not going to pay for that.
Yeah, banks are greedy. Yeah. But we don't have a lot of bank inventory these days, so it's typically it's a seller that's going to be making sure all utilities are on. That way you can test everything.
Yep.
When I'm talking about water, sewer, gas, electric, that kind of stuff.
Yep. Anything that makes the house function or would be a major deterrent if you ended up buying it and it was broken, definitely make sure it's on.
Yeah. But the key in there is just, it's important to have in the contract that the utilities will be on for the inspection period and who's going to turn them on. The next thing that you're going to need, and there's like 7 pages of stuff. A lot of it is definitions, but just like the key elements. When are you planning on closing?
Yep.
You know,
Very
if you're
important.
getting a loan, you need 30 days. If you're paying all cash, you need about 10 days.
Right.
You need some time to do due diligence and for the title company to do their job. It's very rare that if you want to buy a property that you're closing the next day.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
Give yourself at least 10 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're getting a hard money loan, you can still sometimes get it closed in 10 days.
Oh yeah, we've done 10-day closings before. It's a little tougher, obviously, and you better answer your phone when I'm calling. We have a 10-day closing.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely possible, and I've seen them done in 7 or 8. But typically, we like to do two weeks, so 14 days total.
Yep.
So that's just with hard money brokerage, but I'm sure everyone's different. You know, if you are getting real bank financing, like Nick said, at least 30 days to close.
At least 30 days. And depending on the market, sometimes you need 45 days.
Yep.
And there's reasons for that, and we'll get into it.
Yep. And again, your realtor's going to know exactly like how long you should be needing this stuff for.
Yeah, your realtor should.
Yeah.
Unless they're a little inexperienced, maybe they don't know, but you'll find that out as you're working with them.
Yeah.
If they just ask them, how many houses have you sold this year or last year? It's not an offensive answer or ask.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's credibility.
and I wouldn't totally let it deter you either. If you're working with a newer agent, I don't think that's necessarily a horrible thing either, because sometimes they'll give you more. They'll give you a lot of attention,
Right.
because you're one of their only clients.
Yeah.
So that's that double-edged sword too. That they may not know what to anticipate either. So expect problems throughout your closing.
Yeah. All right. So you're under contract. You're looking at your contract, everything. You're in your due diligence period. Everything. Let's just say, hypothetically, you want to cancel. What's the process like?
Before you submit an offer. We're still like writing an offer.
We're writing an offer.
We're writing an offer, but we'll get into that.
Okay, cool.
That's a good question. Pin it. All right. So you also need to sign the offer before you send it. Typically, a buyer is generating an offer, but a seller could too. It's just not as common.
Yeah.
So a buyer is going to generate the offer. If you're working with a real estate agent and it's an on-market deal, they're going to generate the offer, and they're just probably going to email you a contract to look over and to sign online, so you don't. Or they'll have you come to the office and they'll print it off and go over it with you. If you're newer at this, ask them. Do yourself a favor. Just ask them, hey, could I come in since this is my first time, and can we sit down and go over this paperwork? And if you're newer, can you have your broker there too?
Hey, what does this mean? Like, ask those questions. They're there to answer those questions.
Because the better you can anticipate what's going on with your contract, and the better you'll be able to anticipate the next 30 days.
I love that. That's really good advice.
Yeah. So if you've done it plenty of times before, you're probably not listening to this podcast.
Give me that DocuSign.
Yeah, give me that DocuSign.
I'm going to not even read it.
Click. I don't care. I got things to do.
That's how my contracts are lately.
Yeah.
Give me that DocuSign. Let's go.
Yeah, easy way. So what happens then? So your real estate agent, if you sign it, what they're going to do is they're going to go to their MLS and they're going to highlight the address and they're going to copy it. And then they're going to go to their emails and they're going to paste that in the subject line, but they're also going to type in offer for you on, and then they're going to hit the space button.
Can't forget the space button.
And then they're going to upload that PDF to that email. And they're going to probably email something like this. Hi, Jeff. Here's an offer for you. Please see attached. Let me know if you have any questions. Look forward to working with you. And they're going to hit send. And then ideally, they're also going to call Jeff and say, hey,
I sent
Jeff.
you an offer.
Assuming Jeff answers, hey, how's it going? Great. Hey, I just sent you an offer. Check your inbox.
Yep.
Let me know if you have any questions. We look forward to working with you.
Yep.
Or if they got a voicemail, hey, Jeff, this is Nick. I just sent you an offer. It's in your email. I'll send you a text too. Let me know if you have any questions. Look forward to working with you.
Yeah. You want to make it so, I mean, professionals are busy people, and things slip through the cracks sometimes. You want to make it so there's no possible way that they can miss
that offer, because
Right.
sometimes it can go to spam.
Yep.
So that's why it's important, if you're an agent out there listening to this and you haven't submitted offers yet, email them, call them, and send a text.
Yep.
Because that email, sometimes randomly it can go to spam.
Yep.
And they may never see it, and you're just wondering, that agent never got back to me.
Right.
Or just they just got buried.
Yeah.
So you got to send them an email, you got to send them a text, and you got to call them.
Yeah, nobody will be offended if
It's
you hit all
important.
three of those, by the way. Like, I love when people, like, if I'm working, I love when people call me, and if I don't answer, like, I love when they send me a voicemail and a text right away.
Yep.
Because I'm like, right when I get back to my phone, I'm like, oh, Nick needs something.
Yep.
Let's go.
So what's going to happen next is that that seller will probably get back to you within a day or two, depending on their situation.
Yeah. How long does it typically take, or how long is the offer valid for?
As long as you want it to be.
Okay.
So a lot of agents, and myself included, will put like, we'll maybe give them a day or two.
Sure.
And then the offer expires.
You got to really,
in the
like,
contract, too.
48 hours is, I think, a really good time frame
Yeah.
to maximum to not have an offer accepted, because, you know, the longer you give people, the longer they'll stew on it, and the longer
Yeah.
it's just like, are we doing anything? Are we, what's happening?
Depends on the situation too. I mean,
Sure.
if it's a hot property and there's a lot of people there, and if you're one of the first people in and out of that house, and you know that house is busy that day,
Mm-hmm.
you may want to rush to the office, write up the offer, full price or whatever, maybe 1,000 over, maybe an escalation clause.
Yeah.
Depends on the deal.
Right.
You want to get it to that agent as fast as possible, and you want to let them know that, hey, we look forward to working with you. We're giving you till 5 p.m. or 6 p.m.
Right.
And then we're moving on.
I love that, because you're actually creating a sense of urgency in that
Yep.
in that sense, right? Like, if you're anticipating a busy property, get with your agent ASAP as soon as you're done, you know, looking at the house. If you're ready to make an offer, like, hey, let's make an offer tonight.
Yeah.
Let your agent know to let the other agent know, like, hey, my client is very interested.
Yeah. What you don't want to do is give 48 hours or so.
Right.
On a property, on a scenario like that. You go to a house and it's just busy there, just came on the market that day. You want the property. You got to make it expire real quick, because if you just say, yeah, we'll make it expire Monday, great. Just throw my name in a hat then.
Yeah, congratulations. Now, they're all going to look at all the other offers now versus, like,
we'll see
yours
how
is-
many other offers are better than yours, because people have called and I said, well, I got this offer at full price. What can you do?
Yeah.
So the longer it sits there when you have a lot of activity, the worse and worse your offer gets, because people will play on that.
Yep.
Because there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's weird business for sure.
That's how it works.
All right, continue.
Okay. So let's say you got your offer accepted. Congratulations. What now? The next that you're going to want to do a few things, and your agent hopefully will guide you through this. And if not, this is what happens. You gotta meet that earnest money timeline. So there's a certain amount of time that you have to get the earnest money, either to the title company or to the brokerage that you agreed on. Now that it's accepted,
How long does that typically take?
it's a couple business days.
Couple
I
business
think
days. I thought
the
so.
standard, what a lot of people throw in there is like 3 business days. It seems to be appropriate, especially if somebody's not in town, they can
Right.
overnight or wire money to a title company.
Yeah. And then that will come with, obviously, so when you're putting the earnest money in, that will come with instructions on how to wire that money and everything, correct?
Now you may be wondering, what if the title company just gets money? Like what? How would they even know what it's for?
Yeah.
Good question. That you're well ahead of us. So after that offer gets accepted, what the agents immediately do is one of those agents will send it to the title company that's on the contract and say, please open a new order. Here's a new deal. Let us know if you have any questions. Here's the contact info to the buyer. Here's the contact info to the seller. And typically, these days, the title company won't even reach out to the buyer or the seller. They may send you an email of wire fraud, warnings.
Sure.
But that's about it, unless they have a department that's actually good at customer service and they have the time and resources to reach out to people and ask.
Sure.
And you can ask questions. But they're really there to just start digging up title. And see, are there any issues with this title? Can we insure this title and make this transaction go through? And that can take, 2 to 5 business days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get your money, earnest money all over to Escrow. They're going to start doing their title research.
Yep. And at the same time, you started your due diligence timeline. Your inspection period starts the moment that you have a fully executed contract, which means that all parties have signed your offer.
Yep. So it's go time at that point.
Yep, it's go time. That means call an inspector or have your agent coordinate it for you. Get the home inspected. If you're an investor, that doesn't mean you don't get the home inspected.
You always get
if you're a seasoned investor, you actually really want the home inspected, and you'll pay the money for it because you know how much value it is.
Yep.
And how valuable it is to have a third party, non-biased, go through the entire house and pull it apart and give you a full report on everything that needs to be done.
There's your scope of work right there.
Yeah, worth the money, totally. So, fan of home inspections. I wasn't for a while, and then I became one again.
Yeah.
Anyway, so get your home inspections. What that consists of usually is you'll hire a person that will in Idaho they don't have to be licensed either, so you got to be careful who you hire.
Yep.
I don't think there's an actual license for a home inspector. You can be certified by certain companies out there, but in Idaho, it's the Wild West. They don't really. It's not like you need to be certified or licensed to be a home inspector. You could just have a business card.
Are other states different than that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know which are which, but I know in Idaho we're a little backwards.
Do you have to be licensed to be an appraiser?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay, I thought so.
Yeah, and appraiser, you need to have like college experience too.
Right.
Yeah, it's a high bar to entry with appraisers.
Well, I guess I'll never be an appraiser.
Yeah. So what that home inspector does is that they will, and you can be there, which I do if this is a first time kind of deal for you, I'd recommend being there. Yeah. That way you're not looking at the report confused. And anticipate it to take like 2 to 4 hours sometimes.
So you are legally allowed to be at the home inspection?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. As a buyer or a seller?
As a buyer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and the seller can hang out too. The seller can be at their home, and they can be at work. Seller doesn't have to be there, but they don't have to not be there either.
Okay.
Typically, the seller is not there during showings.
Right.
But
typically
during the inspections, that's a little bit different.
Sure.
So this home inspector is going to be typically in your crawl space, in your attic, on the roof, checking out the siding, checking out all the plugs in the home, making sure that everything's grounded and stuff, checking out your electrical panel. They'll pop off the cover to the electrical panel, see if everything's kind of like in place. They'll do their best they can to just inspect things, and then if there are issues with anything, they won't necessarily tell you how to fix it or anything. They just recommend like a roofer maybe should check this out because this doesn't look like it's meeting code, or this doesn't look right. This window over here is lost its seal. So it's they're going to take their time to check almost every element of that home, which is something that most buyers on their own and most contractors just don't do. Right. They just don't have the patience for it. Right. And I think it's a good it's a good way to spend $400.
Right, absolutely. And the cool thing about inspections too, like obviously it gives you that scope of work like I talked about earlier, but it also gives you more negotiating power on the end.
Sure.
Because
yeah. If something's wrong,
you're in your negotiation period. You're in your inspection period, right? Say that inspection period comes back and there's a lot of things wrong with it, or things wrong that you're just like, I'd really like you to fix before we continue with this purchase. Yeah. You're still in your offer. So how does that work at that point?
Yeah, that's a good point. So many different opinions on how this works. But here's the reality of the situation. When you made an offer on that home, you made it assuming that everything that you can see from the showing that you're accepting that.
Yep.
Just think of it that way. Anything that the inspection uncovers, like, hey, the heater actually doesn't work.
Right.
Or you have a gas leak, or hey, in the crawl space there's a lot of rotted wood, or you have a leak here, or there's flooding in the basement that maybe we didn't see before. There's a lot of there's a lot of double tapped circuits in the panel. You have mold in the attic. There's a lot of things like that that are warrantable, depending on the situation, to ask for concessions, ask for things to be fixed. Don't let the home inspection scare you away.
No.
Everything's fixable.
Yeah.
That's one thing you got to understand is that homes eventually decay over time. There's issues, and everything could be pretty much fixed unless the inspector says, hey, this is unfixable, which is rare.
Yep. I don't think I've actually seen that.
Yeah. Almost everything could be fixed unless you have serious foundation issues due to properly unpacked, gravel,
right?
Uncompacted gravel or something like that, which we've seen a couple of times where homes, just need to be torn down because the site work wasn't done correctly. But that's rare.
Right. And like I said, like the way you can negotiate this, you can either ask for it to be remediated or you can ask for a seller concession so you can fix it yourself.
Yeah, you can ask for a price reduction. You can ask the seller to handle things. Yep. You can ask for a holdback, like a construction holdback. All kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But don't be that guy that wants everything fixed on that inspection report, because there's a lot on there that you should have noticed.
Right.
And that's what you made your offer based off of. So don't be an Indian giver.
Offer with intent still, of course, but offer, like if things are seriously wrong with it, like figure out the mediation for it for sure.
And the inspection report is going to look daunting, no matter how good of a home condition it is. I mean, a house could be like in really good shape, but yet the amount of things that you can correct that an inspection report will uncover will be like a list of 20 different things. You might be, if you're new to construction and real estate and this process, you might be like, oh my God, we're buying the worst house in the planet, even though it's actually in good shape. There's just random deferred maintenance that you could or could not take care of.
Right. And like some of the stuff in the inspection report would be like lights not working because the lights burnt out or whatever.
You have the light bulbs not.
Don't freak out when you see that on your inspection report that's 20 pages thick where there's a little bit of drywall missing or there's like a light bulb out or something. Oh my God,
there's electrical, there's a circuit that's double tapped. People can look at that and think, man, this house has electrical issues, when it's as simple as like, okay, we're going to unscrew this and we're going to move this right there and unscrew that and then we're fine.
Yep.
There are like simple 40-cent fixes that people have walked away from homes over.
Yeah.
You just got to really take your time and understand what you're getting yourself into and don't get overwhelmed and just ask people more than one, get more than one opinion.
Right.
If you're unsure about something.
Sure. And again, like your agent at this point is going to be so crucial and beneficial for you in helping you answer these questions, right? Because they're going to be looking at the inspection report with you and they're going to say, is this normal to be fixed? Is this not normal? Are you asking for too much?
Now, the crummy thing is if you are working with a newer agent that hasn't done this much, this process doesn't go easy, right? Because sometimes they can't easily walk you through. Okay, these are the companies that we can just take care of this. This is normal. This is fine. This is this is very common. But we need to take care of that. That's an issue,
right?
Like sometimes when you're dealing with a brand new agent and you're consulting with somebody who's also you see them as a step above you or two, but yet they are just as clueless or even more clueless about construction than you are. That's where it could be a little complicated dealing with a newer agent.
Yeah.
So just something to be aware of.
Yeah.
If an agent's been doing this for 5-10 years, they know construction better than most people.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, but they
absolutely.
It's just because they have to deal with it all the time.
I would say definitely on these inspection reports, kind of going what you were saying, Nick, like don't let them scare you. In fact, I would be more scared if an inspection report came back with nothing wrong. That means like, okay, this inspector clearly has missed something.
Yeah. It doesn't happen often.
Yeah. Anticipate something for the inspection. But again, and that just don't be afraid of what's on the paper just because it's just information for you to use one way or another.
Yeah. So let's say you get past the inspection process. So you're going to take the home as is, or maybe you ask the seller for a couple of things and they agreed. Or maybe you asked the seller for a few things and they said, no, we're not doing that. Are you going to walk away or are you going to just move on and be like, okay, I'll take care of it? Yep. You got to ask yourself, is it worth walking away from this house because the seller doesn't want to do $300 worth of stuff?
Right.
You'd be surprised. A lot of people, they get their emotions into this and they will walk away because they're stubborn.
Especially as an investment property.
Don't be stubborn. Be logical.
Right.
Try to be as logical as you can with this and take your emotions out of it because it's going to be hard to do. But just if you can anticipate that a lot of people get their emotions into this and tell yourself going in that I'm just going to try to be as logical as I can,
right?
You're going to have a better experience.
Yeah. If you are going to cancel, obviously without a doubt, do it in your inspection period. Do it in your diligence period. Like if you go out of that, obviously what happens is you lose your earnest money.
Depends.
Typically,
now,
yes.
if you still have a contingency upon, if you've passed your inspection time frame and you still have to get a loan on the house and it's contingent upon that loan, you can back out and say, I didn't get the loan.
Sure. Yeah.
And they can question that, but the facts are you didn't get the loan.
Right.
We're not going to go into depth about that, but that's the next major contingency usually.
Yeah.
Is okay, now that we're past the home inspection, what's next to conquer in this process is going to be an appraisal, typically if you have a loan. So that's where there's another inspector out there, but this guy barely inspects the house. He's more doing research online and getting comparables and trying to validate the purchase price with the value of the home based off other comparable properties that have sold within the last 90 days to 12 months or so, and try to come up with a value that supports that offer for the bank.
Question on that real quick. I know we're over the hour limit, but does an appraiser take into consideration the inspection report?
No, they never see the inspection.
Okay. I didn't think so. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, if they're walking around on a deck that's fallen apart, they'll take that in consideration because the things typically with an appraisal, like depending on the type of loan program, it needs to be in good shape. Now, if they're if somebody's getting a conventional loan, sometimes the property doesn't have to be in as good a shape as you would expect for for that to go through. Like it could be a completely dated house with some windows that might be cracked here and there. Like there's or the roof might look a little iffy. Yeah. It depends. It depends on what the lender's comfortable with after they get the appraisal report.
Right.
But there are certain standards that like FHA, USDA, VA has when they're looking at their appraisals that like the property has to meet these certain minimum standards.
Yeah.
And it's usually safety.
It's usually safety stuff for sure. But a lot of it's like, peeling siding can be a thing for FHA, like...
peeling paint. Yeah.
Peeling paint. Yeah. Just things to look out for. Obviously, again, your agent's going to be able to know this and what to look out for. And if you're getting financing, you're going to know what you're getting for the most part.
Yeah. So an appraisal is usually another upfront cost, but usually your lender won't charge this to you directly upfront. Usually they'll collect it at closing, or they'll wrap it into your financing or something like that. But sometimes they'll ask you for a credit card. Don't be afraid if your lender asks you for a credit card. Some lenders just don't want to bear the expense of a $500 to $800 appraisal. If you end up backing out, or if you go with another lender or something like that, like they just can't be giving up free appraisals all day long. So just know you got to put on your big boy shorts and stomach some of these costs, because they are costs that you are incurring by buying this property.
And what can happen? Two things after the appraisal. Obviously, the appraisal can come in low, or the appraisal can come in high, or it can come in regular. If the appraisal comes in low, what's the next step?
So if an appraisal comes in low, that's a good question. Let's say you're buying a house for $300,000, and let's say you're getting a VA loan and you're getting 100% financed. And the property comes in at $285,000, $15,000 low. Now you can, as a buyer, you can walk away and get your earnest money back. You will have lost money with the inspection and the appraisal.
$1,000.
But you can walk away at that point, or you can make up the difference. You can say, okay, I'll bring in another $15,000 as a buyer, or you can ask the seller to do it. Or you and the seller can split it. So at that point, it's a contingency that says, hey, I can't get the loan because your house appraised low. Unfortunately, it's just not worth, according to this appraiser, it's not worth that. And it's very hard to get an appraiser to change their mind. Because they're typically, not all of them, but most of them are good at their jobs. They know this better than most people. They know what comps to use. Now, if they're coming from out of state and they just use the wrong neighborhood, it's okay to contest that and just show other comps and try to help out there. But most of the time, don't expect an appraiser to change their mind. It happens very, very infrequently. So yeah, if an appraisal comes in low, you get to walk away, or you and the seller can come to an agreement to get past that, and make up the difference.
Yeah, and if it comes in very low, of course, like I mean, as a buyer, I would be asking the seller to compensate in some way.
Drop the price.
Drop the price, exactly.
Yeah, so that's simple.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, the appraisal came in low, but it's like it's also kind of a good thing.
Yeah.
You're buying the house for less now.
Yeah, you get
a discount. Extra $15,000 off the price. Wow. Thank you, Mr. Appraiser. I'm actually glad I invested that $800.
Buyers want the appraisal to come in low.
Yeah, and sellers do not.
Sellers want it to come in exactly at their purchase price.
And if it comes in fine, guess what? The seller never really sees it. They don't, because it's not their report.
Right, exactly.
If it comes in high, which is rare, but sometimes an appraisal can come in like high, like, hey, I'm buying this house for $300,000. The appraiser just said it's worth $320,000.
That's actually not a bad thing either.
Yeah, and I've seen that happen. And you don't have to say, hey, Mr. Seller, I think we're underpaying. It gets slid under the rug and you keep going.
Yep. Cool. Appraisal passed. We're moving forward, and that's all that has to happen.
And that's typically, so after the appraisal gets done, typically in the background, the lender is also going and verifying your employment. They're checking your taxes, making sure that your taxes are filed correctly and that all your income matches up. They're getting your transcripts. There's a lot that they're doing in the background to make sure that you fit that perfect box as a borrower.
Sure.
And ideally, they've done a lot of this in advance, and now they're just qualifying this property and you are making sure that things are still up to date.
This is an important piece right here too. I've heard a lot. Obviously, once you're under contract and your lender is getting you pre-approved, once you're pre-approved, do not make any big financial moves.
Oh, yeah. Whoopsies. Yeah, some people...
Do not go buy a car while you're under contract. Do not go
to Moore's Furniture and get a credit line of $20,000 to buy a bunch of furniture for your new house that you're buying next week, because they will pull your credit again the day before closing, typically. To make sure that you haven't recently, your debt to income ratios haven't changed.
Make sure you
and
haven't
that you
done exactly what you were doing.
Yeah, so that's something you got to watch out for if you're buying a house and you're using your credit and things are thin, as in like you just barely qualify.
Yes.
Don't run up your credit cards. Don't get a new credit card. Don't buy a boat. Don't buy a car.
Do not get any new credit lines whatsoever.
Yeah, don't screw it up, because that will screw it up.
Once you are closed on your property, feel free to get everything you need. But
lenders want to give you money for your house. Trust me, that's all they want to do.
That's how they make their living.
They have to fit you in the perfect square to qualify. They can't make exceptions.
Yeah,
they can't make exceptions, Jeremy.
Yeah,
they cannot make any exceptions.
I know.
You have to fit the box. So that's what's unfortunate about lenders and getting a home loan, is that there's no exceptions.
Right.
Just remember that.
Their guidelines
their
guidelines are locked in. They're not like palatable, right? They can't be molded.
You can't change somebody's mind. You can't call get the bank manager on the phone. I'm going to tell my sob story.
Well, guess what? You're not in the debt to income ratio anymore.
The bank manager is going to be like, "Trust me, I would love to do this loan. We just can't. The computer won't let us because we have to submit these documents, or else it's mortgage fraud."
Yeah, and then it's our asses, and we don't want that. So I know we're running a little over, but this is really good info. Do you tell your clients that when they're buying houses, like, hey, make sure you don't like do anything stupid, or is that something the lender will typically tell them?
Typically, it's the lender that's telling them that. I should. There's a lot of things we could be talking about.
Right.
I forget about that sometimes.
Sure. And it just depends on every scenario, right? So if you are getting a client who is approved for $330,000 and you find them like a $326,000 house, maybe mention it to them, like, hey, by the way, like, this is going to be tight for you guys. I'm sure you're aware. Don't be stupid with your finances for the next 30 to 40 days until you are signed and closed on your house.
Yep. All right. So the next step, let's say that they have gone through, the lender is they them, they them lenders.
They them pronoun lenders.
So they verified everything that they've already pre-approved you for, and now they have this appraisal. Now, does the appraisal fit the box too? Yep. Does this house meet their criteria to lend on based off your qualifications? Can they blend the two together? And if they can, then what you have is called a full loan commitment.
Okay.
Once you get that email, once you get that, celebrate, start packing because you get to move.
Yep. You're on the books.
Yeah, once you have a full loan commitment, that's the terms you got to remember. Like full loan commitment.
So full loan is commitment is when an appraisal and a loan work together, and both those things pass.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when an underwriter has looked through the borrower's documents and they're done. They've approved it, and they've also approved the appraisal, the appraisal committee or whoever. I might be, lenders reach out to me if I sound like I'm full of shit.
Yeah,
but in my experience, this is kind of how it works. Once those two marry and they're like, okay, we're good. It's called a full loan commitment. Typically, get an email. And that's a good time to be like, okay, I think we've done it now. Now we can plan our move.
Right. Yeah.
We can start packing. We can arrange the moving trucks, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a good. You're on third base. You're running to home base, and you look back and. The ball, none of the outfielders can find where the ball is.
Right.
You're going to be fine. It's typically that's because things still go wrong.
Right. It's not a clear to close.
But it's looking very good for you to hit that home base.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can understand that analogy, lenders.
Yeah. Everybody's baseball fans here. I'm sure they get it.
Yeah. So then what happens is that you will get a call or an email from either your real estate agent or the title company or the escrow company and say, hey, this time to sign. Like, let's schedule a time to sign. And that's when you're going to sit down with the title company or an escrow company. Or usually it's both. They usually do both.
Yep.
And this is where you're going to go over all the documentation again. You're going to look at your loan, 40 pages of loan documents or whatever it is. You're going to sign on the settlement statement. The settlement statement has all the numbers on it.
Yep.
Like, here's all your lender fees. Here's all your title fees. Here's all your escrow fees. Here's what the purchase price of the house is. Here's your earnest money. And this is going to be credited back to you. And it will tell you what your bottom line money that you have to bring to closing. What you're going to want to do before you go to that signing is you're going to want to find out what is that dollar amount, because I need to go to my bank and get a cashier's check for it.
Yep.
Not just a personal check, get a cashier's check. And then you bring that cashier's check with that specific dollar amount to the penny to the closing company.
Yep.
When you go to sign, make sure you bring your driver's license too, or some sort of form of ID. That way they can properly notarize everything. That way you don't have to come back.
Yep.
Most people bring their driver's licenses wherever they go, but
most people
be surprised.
Yeah.
So that kind of sums it up.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do. You need to go through and you need to sign everything, and then you need to wait again,
Okay,
usually another day or so.
Another step after that. So.
Yep. And then you'll get a notification when you have a funded and recorded.
Yep.
And that's after you've signed all your paperwork. The paperwork went back to your lender to look over again, make sure that they're comfortable with it again, and then they'll send their wire to they'll send their wire for the home purchase or their loan amount, and then the title company will take all these pieces and they'll put it together, and they'll transfer the deed, and that's called the recording, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And then you get to move into your new house or rent it out or
There you go.
fix it up.
Yep. So what's the process? Obviously, after you're funded and recorded, how do you get your keys? Who gives you those?
Yeah. Now, I did skip a step. You do have it's called a final walkthrough.
Yes.
And it's important to do before you close. Usually within 3 business days before you close, you're going to want to have access to the property again to make sure that it's still in the same condition as it was that you agreed on after the due diligence time frame.
Yes.
It's just a chance to make sure, I asked them to fix the deck and the heater. Is that working? Okay, good. Let's just walk through it real quick, make sure that the basement isn't flooded.
Right.
Or the house isn't on fire.
Yep.
Usually at this point too, the sellers have moved out, so it's empty and it looks different.
Yep.
There's going to be scuffs on the walls. The carpet may not look great because they took furniture out, and there might be stains.
Furniture stains or
Don't
imprints.
get pissed. I mean, if you're buying a used house, you're buying a used house.
Yep.
So just know that the walls might look scuffed up, and the carpet might look dented.
Yeah.
All common themes. Is it worth backing out of the transaction for? Probably not.
Nope.
But it's your chance to walk through and make sure that nothing is significantly wrong with that house that you
Right.
didn't already agree to.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep. And then from there, obviously, you get your keys, and congratulations, you've either bought a primary residence or an investment property. So
Yep. And that's how you do it. The other two, we went well over an hour. So
barely.
I think we'll just have to wait for another podcast to talk about the other two ways: buying a house off market and buying a wholesale.
Yeah.
So sorry, guys, we didn't realize it would take this long.
No, that's okay. It's really good information, right? But like the next time, obviously, we can talk about like maybe how to talk to your hard money lender when you're doing this stuff, and what information you should be presented with, and what you should be anticipating. So these are good future episodes for sure. This episode was definitely one for somebody who's never bought a house or still confused about the process. We hope you learned something with it, because obviously we want you to learn here. We want you to be entertained and educated. If you found both of those helpful today, please leave us 5-star reviews on Apple, Spotify, MySpace, hotornot.com, Yahoo Pool. Go to Yahoo Pool and leave reviews for the Investor Shed
Come
podcast.
play Yahoo Pool with us.
Yeah, we used to do that. That was fun.
I wonder if it's still a thing.
We can check after we're done, but I know you got to go buy an RV. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. We love and appreciate you. We will see you on the next episode of the Investor Shed podcast.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.